Hey everybody, how's it going? So in the previous video we looked at the basics of routing and I went through a few things to do with just basically setting routes and basically getting a situation where you can kind of click on links and display some different information based on that, okay? But this is very basic stuff. This is just clicking and we get some kind of a view here. In this video, what I'm going to be looking at is a situation where what if a link has a set of data in the URL or in a query string, or it could be as part of the route itself. We can use this data object as part of the route itself. How can we get access to that information so that we can populate it in our view here? Okay. So the thing that we're going to be looking at in this video is something called the activated route service. So to get started, I'm going to create two more routes, or actually I'm going to create one more route, I believe. Yes, one more route. So I'm going to come over and just before child, because it really doesn't matter where I put this too much, I'm going to create one that has a path of people, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this slash, and then after this I'm going to put this placeholder that says something like :ID. Okay. Now what does this parentheses :ID right parentheses do? Well, it basically indicates that as part of the URL we have this placeholder which we can basically pull out of our component a parameter called ID. Okay, and you'll see more of this when I get to the component that I'm about to create here. But before I get started on that, I actually need to go and create the component. So I'm going to create a person component, right, for this particular path. So I'll just quickly jump down here to my routing examples part. Just make sure I'm actually in the right place here. I can't remember. I think I am. So we're going ngg component, and I'm going to call it person. Cool. So as a result, that's generated a new person feature. It's come with the app module. It's, if I refresh this, or maybe even if I save this, yeah, compare, I'm going to add them both together. So I'm going to tick, I'm going to add the person component. I was already editing the file, that's why this has come up. It's okay, no problem there. I'll grab this line. Not sure how to handle this in Visual Studio Code yet, but that's all good. And I'll just tick. And now I've got everything where it's supposed to be. So we've got the person component and we've got the person component here. And then I want to set the person component here. Right? So what's going to happen is now if I go to a URL, it goes people/something, in which this case I'm saying it's an ID of some sort, so probably it's some integer. You know, it's going to come to this component, okay? And to confirm that, let's go over to the person component, and it says person works, all right? So let's quickly see if that comes up. So if I come here and I go people, and I just do that, it's going to say not found because we haven't completed the URL. If I now come in and go 1 after it says just some random number, it still says not found. Okay, that's very interesting. Very interesting. That should have been found then. So what have I done wrong here? My mistake is I do not need them. I'm thinking of a different language. In C#, when you build APIs, you have the angle parentheses like that. In Angular 2, Angular 4, whatever you want to call it, you don't need them. That's the difference. Sorry about that. So now if I come up and go people/2 or 3, it comes up with person works. Okay. So now that we know we're getting to that route, what I want to do is I want to quickly update the HTML to be something a little bit more presentable and something that, makes a little bit more sense to us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a header, H1, and I'll just put in the header at this point, person. And then I'm going to look at 3 things here, okay, for this video. Now, there'll be a lot more that we will look at in further videos in regards to an activated route, but just for the getting started part of this video, I just want to look at 3 things. And they are, you are accessing URL. So basically, similar to what we had in the previous video, where we have access to a URL of some sort. Will we use the location service? Maybe, maybe not. You were trying to find a person with the ID of, and then I have something called person ID. So that I'm going to try and grab from after the people part. And then finally, you have some data information that contains, and then we go data, and I'll spit it as JSON. That's all I'm going to put in this little view for the moment. And now I'm going to jump over to the component. So, the first thing I need to do, and I've already mentioned, is I want to, in the constructor, inject the activated route service. Okay, so I'm going to go private. I'm going to call something activated route, and it's called activated route service. And you can probably guess where this is coming from, considering it's to do with routes. It'll be in the router package. So let me just copy and paste all of that, like so. So what I'm going to show you now is 2 ways of getting certain data. One is good for one reason, and one is good for another reason. But first, I'm going to go with the observable approach. So just say, for example, I want to get the 3 here, right, as part of the URL, because that's an ID to a person, right? How do we go about doing that? Okay. This is the observable approach I'm about to show you now. And there is another way of doing it that's a little bit simpler, but there's a reason why you do the observable way the first time. I'll explain more once I've done both solutions. So I'm going to type this dot activated route. So we're calling the activated route service. On here, I'm going to look for something called params. Right? So far it should be pretty easy. Now this is an observable, so I'm going to subscribe to it. So I'll just put P, and after P, I'm going to basically go this dot, and I haven't created a variable for this yet. This dot person ID is equal to P. Okay. So I'm going to come up here now, and as a string, I'm going to add a person ID. Now I know it's an integer coming in, but if you don't specify this as a string here, it won't understand this here. In fact, why is that coming up with just P? Oh, sorry, my bad. It's P of ID. So the P here is not, this is a key value dictionary of params, and basically what we're looking for is the value of the key of ID, right? And that ID label comes from this bit right here. Okay, after the little colon, that's the parameter. Okay, you can have multiple parameters on this, so I can come on after this and go colon name or something like that. So if you want to get both, but for the purpose of this lesson, I'll just leave it as one. So with that said, now if I come over to here, we now should be able to see the person ID show up on the screen when we access the person URL. Alright, and we can see here we're going people/3, and then it says you were trying to find a person with the ID of 3. So we're able to get that parameter. Okay, if I change this to, let's say, oops, not. If you say Q, we'll still say Q here, so it's not specific to numbers, but you can say 5, and you get the value of 5. If I say 2, you get the value of 2, so on and so forth, right? So you have to be careful about if this is an integer, that whether this can be castable to an integer, handle that situation and so on and so forth. Okay? So that's getting the parameter from the route, this thing here. Okay? What if I just want to grab the URL path here and show that? Okay? Now, you might think this is easy, and with the location service it is. But with the activated route service, it basically breaks up the path into multiple little segments, okay? And it's called a segment. So, for example, say I want to now get the path. I think I called it path. No, we'll just say URL. So we'll do this, right? I think that's what I called it inside of the component. URL, yep. So say, for example, I want to get the full URL. I'm going to go this.activatedRoute.URL. You might say, oh, that's it, right? No, this is an observable of a URL segment array. That's what this is, okay? So again, we have to subscribe to it, and we get a segment array. So if I go SA dot, you're going to get a whole bunch of methods to do with an array. So if you, for example, wanted to reformulate the URL here using the ActivatedRoute.URL, you could do this by concatenating things together. Okay, so for example, I will just go this.URL plus equals, right, and I'll go in that. We will put a slash, wrong slash, no, right slash, like so, and we'll put SA. Oh, wait a minute. This is still an array here, sorry. I need to do a SA.forEach value, and then do the addition of it. So it's not SA here, it's just value. So it's slash with the value, okay? And this is set to the URL, and then it's incremented over and over. So hopefully if I did this right, you should get like a slash and then each path. And you can see here we got /people/2, okay? So if you ever want to get the path without using the location service, you can do it by writing something like this. Okay. Now the last one I want to show is more to do with just adding some extra data to the route. So in here you can go data, and what you can pass is an object. And just say for some specific reason you want to specify, I don't know, name is equal to Daryl. If we hit this route, we can still get this name object or this name value of my name here. But basically what I'm going to print out is the whole array in the component. Okay, so I'm going to come back to the component. Now I need to grab the data for this. So I go this.activatedRoute.data dot subscribe. All right, and we'll just go D for data, and we'll go this dot. What was I going to call it? Or what did I call it inside of here? Just data. This dot data equals D. I think. And then I just need to include a data object, which is any, and it's equal to an empty object at this point. Cool. I'm getting an error here. Why am I getting an error? I think that's that. Yeah. Right. Okay. So hopefully you'll understand what that little piece of data is. It's kind of just like passing in. If you choose this route, here's a little bit of extra information I want to know. It's not overly important. Now, these are the three things I want to show for this video. However, I want to show how to access them in two different ways. And there are two different ways to access the exact same information. And the second option I'm about to show you is the more simpler way. So, I'm going to comment these out. Like so. And now I'm going to do it the easier way, but I'll explain in a minute why you have to be careful doing it this way. So, for the URL, I'm going to go this dot URL is equal to this dot ActivatedRoute dot, and there's this thing called a snapshot. I'll explain what that is in a minute. URL, and then basically it's very similar to what you had up here. You can exactly take this line here, so we're not using observables, we're just doing that. Okay, and we're getting rid of the this.url part, and in fact we're doing the plus equals here. Or are we? Hang on a second. No, that's better. So this.activatedRoute.snapshot.url for each. And then for each one, the value, we're going this .url is plus equals that, okay? So we'll just save that, quickly check that the URL still works now, and it does, okay? So it's exactly the same as before. If I come in and change it to a 3, it still changes, right? Now for the params, again, very similar to what we've got here, except once again, we're not using the subscriptions. So from the subscription level, we don't need to subscribe. We just literally go params ID like that, I believe. And this should return back. No. Yes. So now I go this dot person ID is equal to that. So I save this, I come over. And we'll refresh in a second, I think. And that is not working. Why is that not working? Let's start activated route. Oh, because I didn't use snapshot. Snapshot dot params. And there we go. We got the 3 now. And for the very last one, well, because we're just going this dot that equals that, we can go this dot activated route dot snapshot dot data. Right. And we can assign this to this dot data. I don't think I need the parentheses there. So that's all working again. And you might be saying to yourself, why don't I just do it this way? It's so much easier. Right? I'll answer this by adding 2 new URL routes to the navigation. Okay? So to this up here, I'm going to add a person 1 navigation and a person 2 navigation. And with the observables now commented out, and we're just using this Snapshot, right? And I will get to what this is soon. We'll see what will happen, okay, if we go and add two person links inside of the app component. So let's come in and we will copy and paste, and the first one will be people 1, and I'll just say person 1, and then we'll copy this again and paste it one more time, and we'll say people 2, which will point to person 2. Okay. Now this is where you're going to see why it's interesting to not always write it this way. So if I refresh, now in fact I'll click on home for a second. So I've clicked on home, right, and say, you know what, I'm going to check out person number 1. So you get, you're accessing people/1, you were trying to find a person with the ID of 1, and you have some information that contains that, right? Now if I come up and change this to 2, well, it still works, okay? It's all good, it's happy, right? But that's because I changed it in the URL. What do you think is going to happen when I click it here? This person 1. Now I've got person 2 highlighted. I click person 1. Whoa, what happened there? This 2 still exists. Alright? So, what happened? Why did it not change to 1? The answer is this. Think about what we're doing, okay? We are using the one component to address 2 different people, okay? But it's still the one component, right? We shouldn't have to go and rebuild the component, reinitialize the component every time we change it to a new person, right? So if we swap between the 2, we just want to change the data in the component. We don't want to destroy the component and reinitialize it, because that's bad for us, right? We don't want to have to do that. It'd be nice that if we, select it, we only have to do the minimum required to load the data, okay? So Angular makes sure that if you're jumping from, one link that's using a particular component to another link that's using the same component, it's not going to destroy that component and reinitialize it again with new data. However, if I was to step away now and come to child 2, that person component is now destroyed because we're using child 2, right, which is a child component. If I come back to person 1 now, the data is going to be correct, okay? But now I come over to person 2, which is the same component, it doesn't update. And the reason why it doesn't update is because we didn't reinitialize it. So, what have we got over here? ng on init, right? So we're like, okay, what if we just move it to do check or something like that? Well, you could do that, but that's what the first 3 lines was obtaining to fix. So you can still keep it all in ng on init. However, what we've done in these first 3 lines is we've created a subscription model that we're saying, when this activated route and the URL on that activated route changes, I want you to fire this off and do whatever's in here. Okay? And for the second one, whenever we change the params on the current activated route, right? So whether this changes or the params on it changes, we're going to fire this. Okay? Same deal here. If the activated route changes on this component and all the data changes, well, we're going to fire this again. Okay? So let's see what happens this time. So I come over. I'm currently on person 2, right? So I've just ran the initialization of this component. I've hit these 3 subscriptions, and now we have these things waiting in memory. Okay. If I click on person 1 now, Well, you'll see there's a bit of an error involved here with the URL, but we'll address that in a minute. But what you'll notice is that it actually added people 1 to the end of this, and it changed the ID here to 1. If I come back to person 2, well, it's still appending here, but the value changed to 2. I'll quickly fix this issue here so you get an idea. This issue is happening because every time we change the route, we're appending the URL rather than resetting it. Okay, so what we need to do is I need to create a method here that before we fire off the for each, I'm just going to set this .url is equal to blank. Okay, so we'll come back up, and now if I click on person 1, you'll see that it changes. Okay, it's not being reinitialized, it's not being destroyed, and if you don't believe me, well, let's check it out, ng on destroy. Now I could include the interface up here, but I'm not going to because you don't need to. If I go console.log, person is destroyed, right, when do you think this is going to fire? So I'll open up the console. Alright, we've currently got person selected, so we've initialized our stuff. If I click on person 1, there's no message. The component wasn't destroyed. Why? Because the route that was being used for both of these URLs points to the same component and says, hey, just reuse the same component. Okay? However, if I now go and click on child 2, which is using a new component, the person gets destroyed. Okay? And we already knew this because I've covered this in the past. The bit I haven't told you up until now is that if you change routes and they happen to be the same component, it won't reinitialize. Okay? It'll do a do check and it'll do all those other checks that it does, but it won't reinitialize. So just a little distinction there. So the guide is, with this, if you know for a fact that this component is always going to be linked to one URL, right, and it's not going to be accessed in any other way, so i.e. it's not going to be a parameterized route like the one we have here for this, via this little ID symbol here. If it's not parameterized, you're probably safe to say that you can put all your, or you can do your binding in the bottom fashion here that I've got commented out. If you know it's going to be reused because you're going to have a number of different links that point to different records, just with different IDs, then be very mindful of using observables so that you don't lose the data. Okay. Now the snapshot is basically what you think it is. It is a snapshot in time, right? So when I first get here, the snapshot, when I initialize this component, this is the URL of what it was at that point in time, right? Once we change the route to a route that uses the same component, the snapshot's going to be exactly the same, right? And in fact, because ng on init doesn't get recreated or recalled, and this is a non-observable function, right? So this is not observable here. It would never have updated this .url anyway. You know, so that's just something to be very mindful of. Okay, so I'm going to end the video here, and in the next video we'll look more of what routes can do in terms of children. We can add children to some of these routes. We can look at things like guards. Guards I might leave for a following video because they can do things like protect you or limit you based on authentication and authorization. They're very handy, so it's quite a big topic actually. So I might leave it for subsequent video. But in the next video we'll look at children, and we'll look to break up some of these routes to, once again, put them in their feature zones and create, you know, kind of dependencies between the three of them where we have a full route for the application route, and then for each feature we'll use something called for child. If you don't remember what that is, I'll explain it in the next video. Until then, I'm gonna basically finish up here. I'm tired, it's late, and it's a Thursday night, so I do have to work tomorrow. It's 10:33, and by the time I edit this video and get it ready to go, it'll be nearly midnight. So thank you everybody for listening, and I'll catch you in the next Angular video.